This is a special event. It is the Heisman Trophy of defense. It is the award that gives back to a side of the ball that doesn't get as much glory. Thank you, Charlotte.
What a high level of excellence Bronco Nagurski brought to the game. He's an inspiration to anyone who loves the game of football.
My football story is not about playing for the Carolina Panthers. My football story is from the time I was 5 years old, all I ever wanted to do was play for Wayne Hills High School in northern New Jersey.
I was a part of something, and the purpose of what we were working for was greater than any one of us.
We come out every day to compete, and the only way we can get better is we, compete against each other hard.
It's important to note that sometimes the signs that we ask for are right there in front of us. Win or lose, there was always a message in there. It's about what we do with the adversity we face.
You can have a dream, but you better be prepared for that opportunity.
It's a lot of hard work. I mean, it's nothing is given. I mean, you have to earn everything.
Honored to be here today. You do such wonderful work. The funds you raise for scholarships around the area, that's wonderful.
A very heartfelt thank you to members of the Touchdown Club for your support of 16,000 plus students who you all are impacting annually. Studies show that GPAs and graduation rates are higher, absences and dropout rates are lower.
What I've learned in my life is you can accomplish anything in this world. If you want to do something bad enough, you'll find a way.
But it's important that everybody in this room and beyond understands that it starts with us. You see these kids on the come up, you gotta let them know.
Football was a gladiator sport. Only gladiators played football.
Tonight, you are going to get a glimpse of excellence of our finalists and what they have brought to this game. Their dedication, passion, and brute strength, along with their ability to make key plays during crucial moments in big games.
Growing up around the game, I have a deep and abiding respect for those who have paved the way. Bronco Nagurski was a true pioneer of our game.
Our guest speaker today is the son of a coach. So when a lot of young men in high school were trying to figure out who to ask to the sock hop, Greg Olsen was scheming on how a seam route might best defeat cover two. Greg Olsen is smart. He's a leader, a doting husband and father. He's funny, tough, a hard worker, a technician, a tactician, and those are his bad points. When Greg Olsen is on the football field, his play is not just effective, it's elegant. So we direct your attention now to the video screens.
It's a special group. Play for the guy next to you. Do your job. Nothing different. Let's go. Bring it in.
Newton back straight up, sets his body, lofts a pass to Olsen. Great catch into Saints territory, the 42-yard line. First down, Carolina Panthers. Newton backs up, looking, calculating, sidearm throw. Greg Olsen, touchdown.
And you tell him, Greg Olsen, you let everybody know.
Let's go. Let's get our edge back now, O.
Newton from a clean pocket, end zone. Olsen got it. Touchdown, Carolina Panthers.
I see you, big dog. One play at a time, one score at a time, right?
Cam Newton fakes a handoff, sprints right, flicks it to Olsen, down the right sideline. Touchdown! Cam Newton to Greg Olsen. Cam Newton throws a pass, Olsen end zone, caught, touchdown!
Yes! Olsen gets behind the secondary. Incredible play. Oh my goodness!
Newton to throw. Loads up. Looking end zone. Olsen. Grabs it. Unbelievable. Touchdown.
What a catch. It's a great throw and an even better catch. Oh my goodness.
Let's bring him up. Not only one of the great tight ends in the NFL, but one of the great football players in the National Football League, the incomparable number 88, Greg Olsen.
Mick, does this have to stay in here? It's a little low. Thanks for the answer. Looks like I'm stuck here. Wow. Mick, you get used to this up here with these bright lights, huh? Well, if you couldn't learn, the best thing about the Panthers is their video editing staff, because they can make anybody look pretty good. I would be the first to say that was a pretty good highlight film. I didn't realize there was that many good plays. They could have made about a 4-hour-long one of some bad plays where I didn't look so hot. So, Mick, thanks for putting in a good word with those guys. But first off, I just wanted to thank you guys for letting me be a part of this event today. The work that the Touchdown Club does hits very close to home for me. As we saw in the earlier video earlier, supporting youth athletics and supporting children as they grow up in their lives through athletics and through their life hits close to home to me, because unlike a lot of the stories you hear now that people talk about, this kid, he's an NFL player, the underdog story, he was didn't pick up a football until he was in high school, or didn't pick up a football until college, never played football, played basketball, and now all of a sudden he's a tight end. That was not my story. The programs that you guys are impacting, youth sports, high school sports, that's where I grew up at. As Mick said, I'm the son of a high school football coach. My father was coached over 40 years in northern New Jersey, one of the winningest coaches in New Jersey state history. My football story is not about playing for the Carolina Panthers. My football story is not about playing for the University of Miami, playing in the Super Bowl, playing in Pro Bowl. My football story is from the time I was 5 years old, all I ever wanted to do was play for Wayne Hills High School in northern New Jersey. The kids I looked up to was not Jerry Rice and Steve Young and those guys that were at the top of the game when I was a kid in the 90s. The kids I looked up to were the captains of my dad's football team. When I was 5 and 6, and my weekends would be Saturday mornings, I couldn't wait to get up with my dad and go with his coaches to the local diner and have breakfast, and then run over to the stadium and just hope that some of the older kids would ask me to change the screw-ins on the bottom of their cleats, help pack the ball bag, jump on the bus, drive to wherever the game was, and then play the game. Most of the time they won. Go home, wait for the guy to drop off the old film projectors that my dad would splice and edit and taped back together. And that Saturday night, we'd sit around and have pizza and watch the game from that day. And I would just sit next to him, both through the good comments and through the bad. And growing up in northern Jersey, for any of you who don't know, there's a lot more of the bad. But that was my life. That's what I grew up. And as I stand here today as a 31-year-old father of 3, been married for 7 years, have played at the highest level of sports, my life, not only as an athlete, but as a person, as a husband, as a father, started as a 5 and 6-year-old kid, just dreaming about playing high school sports. But I was the rare occasion. I not only had a father who was very involved in our life, but I had a father who was involved with our athletic life, our personal life, our school life. When I was in high school, he was my homeroom teacher my senior year in high school. So while my friends would text, hey, let's go out for breakfast and miss first period, I couldn't miss first period, because if I didn't show up to homeroom for attendance, my dad was the guy turning in the attendance report. And if I got called down to the principal's office, you weren't worried about seeing the principal, because the first person you saw sitting there was your father. But those lessons that I learned, that is what has brought me to this point today. A lot of you have heard our personal story of what we've gone through with our son and the challenges that we've faced. But all of that, my ability to handle those ups and downs, my ability to handle this winding road that has brought me to here today, would not be possible without those early life lessons. See, in today's world, everybody thinks about youth sports as, I want to get my kid a scholarship. What camp can I get him involved in? We play year-round AAU basketball and year-round AAU girls softball, and everyone gets so wrapped up in the games. The points people are missing is it's not about the game. It's about the lessons that are implemented through playing the game. We weren't allowed to miss because our friends were going on spring break in high school. We signed up for track. You were showing up for track. You weren't going. There was commitment. The concept of being a part of something bigger than yourself from the time we were 5 years old was drilled into our lives, most of the time through our sports. There's no other element of society for a young kid to really learn what the real world is like than playing youth athletics. You're around a group of kids that maybe otherwise you wouldn't maybe be exposed to or associate with. You may have a coach, an authority figure who you may not agree with. He may not like you. You may not like him. You don't think your playing time is acceptable. Your dad doesn't think the playing time is acceptable. But guess what? That's the real world. That's life. But at the end of the day, can everyone come together for a common goal, something bigger than themselves, and learn that sense of selflessness and apply themselves day in and day out towards that common goal to achieve something special? In high school, that achieved something special was I wanted to win the state championship. My father coached at our school for 40 years, and up until my senior year in high school, he had lost 8 consecutive state championships. My older brother, Chris, played 4 years for my dad. His freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year, they made it to the state championship, lost all 4 years. My freshman, sophomore, and junior year, I lost all 3 years. But it was finally at that last senior year that we were able to achieve something great. But it was not because of that one season. It was not because of me or any of the other guys on the team. It was because of through the years, we never let the results dictate our approach. The standards that he held for us as individuals, both as his sons and as his players, was the same level of expectation and standards that were held for every other kid in the organization, from freshmen who didn't play to the senior captain. You were held to a high standard, but our results never raised or lowered those standards because we were true to the path that he set out for us, and we were true to the path that the team set out for. The reason I share all these stories and how it ties in to where I stand today, all of those life lessons at the time I thought was just about sports. Just about football, getting a scholarship, what opportunities would football or other sports, what doors would open for me. What I look back at now is that was just the beginning. My football career has forever been shaped by them, but more so off the field than it was on. I'll take you back to 2011. We just came off the lockout. For any of you who don't know, the CBA was not agreed to upon, and the owners locked out the players, and we were not allowed. I was up in Chicago playing for the Bears. Lockout gets lifted. That June of that summer, we have our first son, Tate. He's now almost 5. We're on top of the world. The last game, little did I know, would be the last game that I ever played for the Bears, was the NFC Championship. We were 5 points away from the Super Bowl. We just lost to our arch rival, the Green Bay Packers, at home in Soldier Field. Close game, was my first taste of the playoffs. So here I am, just finished my 4th year in the league, just had a great year, just finished on a team that was on the doorsteps of greatness. Coming off the lockout, just had my first child, all's well in the world. I report to training camp at Olivet Nazarene University in July of 2011. It was the Bears Wofford. I report, I'll never forget, I'm sitting at a movie with a couple of the guys on the team. We just passed our physicals, and I get a call from my agent, and I click it, and I ignore it. I'll say, I'll call him back. Follow up, a text. Hey, we need to talk. I just got off the phone with the Bears, and I think they're going to trade you. This was at 11 p.m. this night. Okay, it kind of catches you off guard. You kind of take him back a minute. Call him. Long story short, we all know what happened. Within 24 hours, I pack up my dorm room, I drive home, spend one night, pack a little bag, and the next morning jump on a flight and fly here to Charlotte, and they drive me to Wofford University. Never stepped foot in the state of North Carolina other than 2-3 years prior when, as a second-year member of the Bears, we came here, and my only memory of playing in Charlotte was I caught 2 passes, I fumbled both passes, you all cheered, I wanted to climb under my desk, and we lost. And you guys were probably like, God, this guy stinks. Why'd we trade for this guy? That's the only thing I ever know him by is he fumbled twice, the only game he ever played here. But here I am. I get traded to the Panthers. Come here, we had won 2 games. So immediately, the first thing that comes to mind is, why? I had everything going for me in Chicago. It was a big market, big city. Why is this happening? Why all of a sudden when our life really found its groove and personally off the field welcomed our first son 6 weeks earlier. All is going well. We just came off a great run as a team the year before. And now I'm being sent to a team that just had the number 1 overall pick. We drafted a quarterback that played 1 year of college football. Granted, he was pretty good. He played 1 year of college football. They won 2 games. We just hired a new coach. We've had a lockout. No one's met each other, and we're going to show up at Wofford University, and we're going to play a game in 5 weeks. I said, this sucks. I said, what did I do to deserve this? Well, I'll tell you why. About 6 months later, as my life fell apart, the irony of the situation is everything came together. For the first time, a greater purpose than myself. Up until that point, I'm sure this is not news to a lot of you guys, the NFL is made up of very self-centered, driven, highly motivated, highly skilled individuals. It is our greatest strength. It allows us to apply ourselves to goals. It allows us to achieve goals. It allows us to set out high standards to reach and puts us on a path to achieve great things in a very physically high-stress environment. But it also creates a lot of a lot of people that don't really understand the concept of team and are only always looking out for their own self-interest. So there's a good and a bad. For my whole life, all I knew was myself. I was good at football. I was going to do, my whole day revolved around what I could do to excel and be the best player I could be. And if it was any other person's interest or anybody else out there that interfered with that, you were getting pushed to the wayside because I was a man on a mission. Well, now all of a sudden you get married, you bring in your first kid, you start getting an idea of where you fit into this big picture. Well, that picture became even bigger. That first off season, we had spent about 6 months here in Charlotte up until this time, 8 months, and we find out that Karis, my wife, is pregnant, and not only is she pregnant, she's pregnant with twins. So, of course, that was, I heard a couple people gasp. Granted, our son at this time was less than a year old, so yeah, you can gasp. But of course, we're loving life, right? We're super excited. Everything with our first son was so easy. It was everything you could dream of. It's going to be the same thing now with these two. May of 2012, we go for a routine ultrasound to find out the gender of the babies, and our life forever gets flipped upside down. I never realized at this moment how much I was going to rely on those 5-year-old football ball boy life lessons of being a part of a team and being a part of something that was not about yourself. And those lessons my father drilled into us and my mother drilled into us from the time we could consciously process information. Never did I imagine how the lessons learned through football and the lessons learned through my exposure to athletics would pretty much allow me to guide my family through every parent's nightmare. So we get the news that our son is going to be born with a serious critical congenital heart disease called hypoplastic left heart syndrome. If left untreated, he is 100% going to die. There is no way a child can live. In essence, he's born with half of a heart. For any of you who have seen our foundation t-shirts that says have a heart, kind of a play on the whole concept, our son literally was born with only half of a heart. If left untreated without a series of surgeries, it is 100% fatal. So fast forward through that whole time, the concept of why, where we were put in here, from why we were brought to Charlotte to why all of a sudden do I play for the Panthers, I liked being in Chicago, all of those questions were answered in one sit-down interview, meeting, observation, we're desperate, please give us an answer we want to hear, with a team of doctors up at the Boston Children's Hospital. About a couple days after we got the diagnosis, you spend crying, you're online, you're trying to find every possible solution. The reality was the solutions were never going to be something that we were going to be able to hear and digest without, a few tears. And we brought ourselves up with the help of Mr. Richardson. He flew us up to meet with the team up at Boston. They're the foremost experts in pediatric cardiac care in the world. They pioneered pediatric cardiac surgery. They were the top of the top in our mind. So we fly up there, and I'll never forget it for the rest of my life, because everything in our life finally came into picture, and kind of the pieces of the puzzle all fit together. The head of their cardiac program walked in. He said, "So you guys are from Charlotte?" We said, "Yeah, we just moved here a few months ago. We're kind of new to the area. We've lived here less than a year." He goes, "Let me tell you something. We would take great care of your wife, your family, your children. If you want to come up here, we will give you world-class care. But what you need to know is, back where you just flew from, there is Levine Children's Hospital, which is a world-class facility with a world-class pediatric cardiac surgeon. And if you were asking me what I would do, is I would get back on the plane and I would fly home and I would meet with them, because the level of care that they can give you in the comfort of your own home is something that we can't do here." And we sat there, and for the first time, we said, that's why we're in Charlotte. All of this ups and downs and all of this, why are we here and why were we put in this position, it became clear. We were brought here for a reason. We were made to be a part of this Charlotte community. And from that day forward, through the entire process of waiting for TJ to be born and going through 3 open heart surgeries and missing, practices and running and playing games with him out down the street on Moorhead in Levine Children's Hospital, the community rallied around us like I could have never, ever imagined. A community that knew us for nothing. They never heard of the Olsens. The Olsen families had been here less than a year. The amount of people who reached out to us, the amount of people who'd sent us dinners to our house, the amount of people who would send us cards to the hospital and fill up TJ's hospital bed with balloons and 6-foot-tall giraffes. It was unbelievable as a father to see what that would be like. And those lessons that were ingrained in me from a child, for the first time in my life, it was not about Greg Olsen as a football player. My priority was no longer as being Greg Olsen, a Carolina Panther. I was now Greg Olsen, a dad. Being a dad and being a husband, being part of something bigger than myself. It all came full circle. But it took something like that to really open your eyes, and you wish that it didn't, but that's the reality. My wife and I say our marriage, our relationship with each other, how much we just appreciate the simple things in life. We wish it didn't take our son being born and having to go through these to make those kind of open your eyes to, wow, what a different perspective. But it can't help to shape who you are and who you've become. And I would never wish what our son went through on anybody. But the lessons that it has taught us and the things that the exposure to this community and the support of this community and what they've done for our family is something that we could never repay. It has made us who we are today. It is a process that has forever changed our lives, and as in return, we are trying to change the lives of people who find themselves in a similar situation who come after us. The moral of my story is, it seems very silly to draw a comparison, but it's never too early to impact the lives of kids. You never know when those life lessons are going to start. You never know when those life lessons are going to come into play. You never know when those life lessons are going to serve your family at its greatest need. I know my life lessons that were installed on me from the time I was 5 and 6. It just happened to be through athletics. But there's other areas that you can impact children. It might be 30 years later, 25 years later when they bring home a sick kid, or it might be 10 years later when they're having trouble finding a date to the prom. Regardless of what the situation is, it's never too early to invest in our kids, because our kids are our community. The more we can do to service these kids and lift them up and give them the tools to handle their own problems instead of trying to always handle the problems for them, equipping them with those tools to move forward in a very ever-changing, challenging world that they're going to be brought up in, you can never start that process early enough. That process for me, I was fortunate, was started at a very young age. It was a winding road. It was a road that was never always according to plan. It was never a road that was always perfect. But there's no doubt in my mind as I stand here before today, the lessons that were installed on me as a kid and the adults and the people, even outside my parents, that invested their time in me, are a huge reason why I not only was able to experience the things that I've experienced and achieve the things that I've been able to achieve, but even more so than that, be the father that I am today, to be a part of this community, try to impact this community. Those are the things that I hold most true and dear to my heart. Our foundation, our efforts with our foundation and the families that come up to us and say that we've been able to impact their lives and they'll never be able to thank us, it's not about thanking us. Because when we needed people the most, they were there for us. And that range of impact can vary based on people's resources, based on people's time, based on a lot of number of factors, but an impact's an impact. We're fortunate that we have a tremendous platform. We have a tremendous resources to dispose to help the lives of other people, and we're going to take full advantage of that platform. We're going to spend every single day of our life trying to make sure that families who come behind us have the tools to handle these issues. And the most rewarding thing I have is at our events when these families come up to us and just tell us about not only how it impacted their child, but how it impacted their family. Because I promise you, serving other people and serving people outside of your own self-interest where there's nothing in return for you is the most rewarding and most inspiring and powerful tool that anyone can be left with. We don't tell our story for pats on the back. We don't pretend that we've done anything different than any of you moms and dads would do if you found yourselves in that position. The reason we share our story is to let you guys know that you can have an unbelievable impact on people's lives. And sometimes the gifts you're given, sometimes the pats that you're given, you may not have chose. It might not be how you dreamed it up. But it was given to you for a reason. And once you identify it, and once you identify what that gift is, use it on other people. Because if you can use it on other people, I promise you it'll come back full circle 1,000-fold. And you will find a sense of purpose greater than anything in your wildest imaginations. Because I know that's been the story of my life and the life of my family. So I thank you guys for allowing me a couple minutes to share this story. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting our community, our children, youth athletics specifically. And I look forward to answering any of your questions and chatting here with Mick for a little bit. And again, thank you guys for having me today. I've enjoyed it. Appreciate it.
We got handheld mics in here for you Q&A. Oh, my goodness.
I asked you if that mic came out, and you didn't answer me. I could have at least stood here and not been so awkward bending over that mic.
I thought you were
Thanks,
talking
Mick.
to Rocco. My gosh,
Mick.
these grouchy tight ends. All right, we just have a few minutes. How's TJ?
Thanks. Give me a good heads up. TJ's doing great. Just a couple weeks ago, he actually had his pacemaker changed. The battery died really fast on him because he uses it a lot. But other than that, he's been great. I was telling our table here with Electrolux, I was telling the guys from there that he plays t-ball. He runs around. He's not the fastest kid. He's not always going to hit the ball. He's happy to be on the team. He's happy to put his uniform on and go with his older brother, and his older brother kind of pulls him by the shirt to where he needs to be. But he has an unbelievable perspective on life from just being a 3-year-old. And whether he would have been like that without those challenges or not, we don't know. But we can't help but think that it's helped make him have such an unbelievable outlook. He enjoys everything. He never complains. He's just happy to be there. His older brother has to win at everything, and I don't know where he gets any of that from. But you know what? Sometimes it's nice for TJ. I wish I could be more like him. Because whether he's the first kid to round first base or he gets lapped by the kid behind him, he doesn't care. Because he's just happy to be out there. And as a dad, that's all you could ask for.
It can be difficult for fathers and sons to communicate. Your dad, Chris Olsen Sr., I believe, have you had the opportunity to tell him everything that you might want to tell your dad about what he's meant to you?
Yeah, I'm fortunate. My mom and dad actually live now here in the Charlotte area. So when he retired, he coached my youngest brother, Kevin, who's now actually over at UNC Charlotte playing football for their team. Yeah. When he finished, when my youngest brother Kevin finished, my dad retired after 45 years of coaching high school, and him and my mom moved down here to be closer to the grandkids and just be closer to our family and be able to come watch me play. And yeah, I've told my parents, and obviously my dad being our coach, but both my parents. I wouldn't be in this position if it wasn't for them. They from an early age, they sacrificed a great deal to to give us everything. You know, they were both school teachers. You know, we didn't grow up with, you know, a ton of money. We didn't grow up in the fanciest of areas, but we grew up in a household of people who loved us, that put us first, who sacrificed a lot of their own self-interest and things that they maybe otherwise would have wanted to do, but that wasn't the priority. You know, and again, those things seem small and those things seem that we take for granted, but they have lasting impacts. It's something now 31 years later I look back on and appreciate and totally accept that it shaped who I am today and shapes a lot of the way I parent my kid and a way to, you know, a lot of the things that we try to do with our children.
There's two last questions, and we'll get everybody back to work and let you do the same, Greg.
I'm sure everybody's dying to go.
When you came out of the U, there was a scouting report on you that said you had underdeveloped calf muscles.
You love that story.
Well, how have you overcome
I'm
that
gonna tell
kind
the
of
real
physical
story.
malady to go on
Hold
and
on
play
a
sports
second.
at a high level?
So here's the actual story. It didn't say underdeveloped. So no, here's the real story, and these guys love this story. I don't know why. So I'm at my pro day, so it's March of 2007. I'm at my pro day down in Miami where I went to school. For those of you who don't know, like all the teams come down there. It's separate from the combine. So I went to the combine a few weeks earlier, and then the teams come to your school and they can put you through more drills. They can actually like work you out, hands-on kind of thing, and see if they like you, what you do good, don't do well, whatever. And I'm standing, I wasn't running the 40-yard dash because I had already run it at the combine, and there was a scout from the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he was kind of standing in front of me, and I was watching the guys run, and he's taking his notes, and I just kind of looked down because it has all the guys on Miami's numbers and names and then like a little note section that they can write on. And I look over, and sure enough, it says Greg Olsen, tight end, height, weight, whatever. And then in the notes section, he wrote poor calf development. And I never forgot it for the rest of my life. And I was like, what the hell is that supposed to mean? What do you want, big fat calves and be slow? Like, I don't understand. I don't follow. But they didn't draft me, thankfully, because I didn't want to play for them anyway. And my poor calf development has served me for 10 years. So for anyone out there who has small calves, you can achieve great things, apparently.
That's great. All right, and you wonder why we love that story.
It's not that good of a story.
Get a great reaction. Okay, lastly, Greg, what do you feel about the 2016 Panthers and what we might be capable of?
No pressure. So here's the funny thing about having great seasons. It actually makes things harder. When we were 2-14, 6-10, 7-8-1, even though we won a playoff game somehow, it's easy to stay motivated, right? It's easy to say, oh, we have so much work to do, because you just have to look at your wins and losses, and it automatically is like, yeah, we're not there yet. After seasons like that last year, being able to maintain that level of success is the hardest thing in the NFL, both individually and collectively as a team. Our biggest hurdles that we're going to face this year, and we talk about it on a daily basis because it's just the truth. Can you sit through a meeting of things that you think, oh, I've heard this 100 times. I don't need to listen to how we install iWrite. I got it. We've arrived. We won 17 games. We're just going to show up on the first game and we're going to win. We're going to show up and have the best offense in the league. We're going to show up and Cam's going to win the MVP. And all's going to be great because we have the same people wearing the same jersey numbers. That's not how it works. There are no guarantees and there are no promises in the NFL. If you're not willing to put in all that work, like I touched on in the story about our high school real fast, the same thing applies. We didn't just all of a sudden win 17 games last year because we decided to have a good year. We won 17 games last year because in 2011, we stuck to our plan. Even though we only won 6, we stayed true to who we were, from our practices to our meetings to everything that went in, and we built the foundation. And then the next year, we implemented a lot of those other things and tried to increase it. It was a process. You don't just go overnight and win 17 games. Now, the reality is, are we willing to do all those countless hours and the countless installs and the meetings and the workouts and the tireless things back starting a month ago? Are we willing and able to do all those things all over again because we're not willing to just assume we're going to show up and win? I want to say yes. I've seen nothing as otherwise, but that's going to be a daily battle for us to fight human instinct and just human nature of we've got it, we've arrived, let's take a seat back, the games aren't for another 4 months. That's not how the NFL works. This is a highly competitive, highly stressful environment that the slightest things can totally throw everything off plan. And and the first thing is realizing that. And I think if you're aware of it and conscious of it, it won't sneak up and catch you off guard. So we're going to do everything in our power to have great OTAs so we can have a great mini camp, and then a great mini camp so we can have a great training camp, and a great training camp, so on and so forth. Because if you just say, oh, I can't wait to get back to the Super Bowl next year, well, the reality is we got to play 18 games before that day even, is even in the picture. So we have a lot of work to do. There's no mistake about it. I think we have the guys that are willing and able to put in the work, and we have a lot of good players, which also helps. So we'll take it one day at a time. We start up our OTAs on Tuesday, and we'll hit the ground and get back to work.
For the classy way he does his job and represents, and for one of the best programs this club, I think, has ever seen, can y'all give Greg Olsen a round of applause?
Thank you.